All right. Hey, welcome, folks. Mil Spec Ops Monkey here. This is going to be your SITREP. It is 11 a.m. Central Time coming to you from the great state of Texas. It's 5/22/2023. And so let's talk prep for a second. I'm going to jump over here to the board. If you missed out on the $200 worth of free gear, it's actually, like I said, while supplies last, it is gone. Again, I have just a fantastic affiliate program going with My Patriot Supply. And if you're looking for food prep, this is the place to go. Right now, because they ran out of the other one, they do now have a 3-month emergency food supply going. It's 2,000 calories a day, 21 different varieties with a 25-year shelf life. And it's 120 pounds worth of food. And oh, by the way, it's free shipping when it comes to this. This stuff it's really pretty amazing, and your mind will be blown. It'll show up in about 2 days because it always does. They're very fast at everything they do. But that is the current deal going right now. If you jump over to monkeyworksprep.com, they also have this one here. It's a 2-week food supply, that emergency food supply. It's $127, which is pretty good when you start thinking about feeding that much time. 2 weeks worth of food. You couldn't go to the grocery store and get that kind of food at that price. So again, these guys are just simply amazing. Jump over there at monkeyworksprep.com, and you'll be happy you did so, especially with the way things are shaking loose today. So that said, let's do this. I'm going to jump over here to Skyglass, and we're going to talk here. We're starting it off with air refuelers. And on screen, I've got 5 that are currently up. You can see doing a little bit of work here. Now, we did have an exercise going on down here in Naples, and or around Naples, sorry, in Italy, I should say, but around Naples. So there was a lot of activity going on here last time we checked in. And this right here, little base here in southern Spain that's right there across from Morocco. That looks to be a pretty busy location for us as well. I would imagine it is a port location for getting supplies in. And then you can notice there's a couple look to be transitioning across the drink. And this one here I find interesting because it came out from way up here. It looks like over Pakistan or northern India, from what I can tell from this. Maybe, no, actually, that's a little further north. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we'll just, let's get over to the U.S. You start getting to all these stands up here, and that may be Kazakhstan or something like that. I don't know. All right. Rather than embarrass myself further, let me jump over here to CONUS. And this is where we are right now. 22 air refuelers up currently. I did just add all these to my watch list, although I don't load them because it is what I would refer to as the mother load. It's a lot of them, but I'm going to be utilizing that to basically run some very controlled runs that'll give me a little bigger picture than just the last 24 hours. Okay, so for right now, that's what we're going to do. And then this, you can see just getting airborne. Most of them look like they're just starting out a lot headed down west, down towards the border. I've got one here headed westbound off the coast there, or headed towards the coast. What I don't see are our usual ones up here over D.C. and that area, which I find interesting because we always see them here. Nothing in the skies. And again, these are very, very good indicators that we have fighters airborne, okay? So let me get this thing tilted up, and we're going to take a look here at just, let's pull the air refuelers out. I've already stripped the, let me reshuffle the deck here. I've already stripped the trainers out. So we had 78, so almost 80 Tex 2s, which are going to be trainers. T-38s are at 19, so you've got 100 trainer aircraft up that would normally just be showing a lot of congestion here. And let me take off these traces. I'll put that back on in case I decide to trace something else. But this is where we are currently right now over the U.S., so it looks to be around 207, 208, somewhere in that range. And, okay, so let's do this. Let's go over here to our... we're going to go to watch list first. We'll check this and start talking about what is on our screen here. This one here is just, it's a Phoenix, the Phoenix group. They do stuff back and forth with engineers off the coast of California. Those are going to be survey and more survey and more survey. Oh, an R-135. Normal location for that one. More survey flights. And we get over here. Notice that's one of our Intel balloons that's at 70,000 feet. That's going to be Raven, showing as Habal now, 628, which it was showing as Raven Aerostar a minute ago. More survey balloons, or not balloons, but survey aircraft. As we kind of zoom in a little bit. Now, I want to point out, see those purple looking color ones? Those are incognito, folks. That means they don't want to be seen. We can see them here because the way this thing is crowdsourced, this is somebody's got a local antenna down below that's actually feeding that more than likely, and that's why we're seeing them. So the purples are what would normally be like an NA or something. Again, GV Air Inc. seems to be the ones that don't want to be seen. Why would you be hiding? That is a very good question. Unless you were up to something, right? Now, we're going to talk more about the survey flights here in just a minute. And I got to tell you, I just got a number on my screen that popped up just before we went live. And I did not have a chance to update my numbers. So we're going to talk a number that's going to blow your mind. It is staggering, and it is far greater than what I presented. So those are the balloons there. That's going to be German Air Force Mil Intel balloons. We get over here. We'll look at Japan and go down under in Australia. Check that out. And nothing really up there. Now, we did go last night, so you know, on a Sunday evening. I thought it was pretty impressive. That one over there over near Perth is going to be a trainer. Most of these are trainers, those little PC-21s. That one is not. That's going to be one of your... it's like a new modern AWACS. It has far greater capabilities than the AWACS does. And that one is currently up. A little Airbus there to the south side down toward Taz. And then just notice you do have the U.S. down there doing some stuff and probably a refueler. And that's that B762, probably a refueler. And then there, a couple Australian things. Notice the NAs kind of populating there, probably P8s. Get up here to Japan. Remember the G7's going on over there, but this was last night. Air refueler, it looks like, and that looks to be a Japanese refueler. BE-20 Mojo call sign. Yeah, a couple BE-20s, some little beach aircraft hopping around. That's kind of a common aircraft down in that general area. All right, let's talk C-17s. This will give us a general idea of the flow. Luxembourg seems to be a very big area for us to float things in and out of. And as you can see, it's almost like looking at fiber optic wiring, just that long cord strand. Notice some things down into Africa, right? And don't lose sight of that. Africa, it's there's a lot of stuff going on there we don't have eyes on most of the time, okay? All right, now over here we've got, this is Japan again, so light. If you tried to tell me there was, we were really worried about China taking Taiwan and we were going to fight for Taiwan, I would have to say I don't see it just because there's just no movement. I mean, very little movement compared to what we see in Europe. I think Europe is the big threat, and that will go hot before anything else. And China will probably wait till it goes hot. Again, up the ports, Eastern Seaboard, same stuff, same places. In California, Beale Air Base, and then up in Seattle. So, all right, let's talk 3-day survey for a minute. We'll kick it off down under again. I'm not sure. I will be honest with you. I don't know if these are accurate for this time of year. This may be a common occurrence in Australia this time of year. They may conduct surveys, although I don't know. So I'm going to leave it up to the Australians to disseminate and figure out if that is a real threat or if it's just common occurrence this time of year. And then we're going to look, this is U.S. last 3 days, so about 141, I think it was, 144. It is still very active. I mean, think about it, they're doing stuff over the weekend, but it just is, again, we'll get in, we can just kind of scout over the areas. You'll see that one coming out of the Bahamas, I don't get southern or south side of Tampa. Then we get up over D.C. and just notice, again, I mean, they've probably looked at D.C. 50 times. And that's a survey like back and forth, proper grid kind of deal. We've got West Virginia, We get up here, Wisconsin, all the way up over, the right up to the border, and Iowa, Lincoln, Nebraska. I mean, these are just over and over and over. Look at this slop over Dallas. Like, that's not a grid type of search thing. That's I don't know what that is. What are they looking for? These aren't, nuke sniffers. These are looking at with LiDAR and other technology to gather ground data. Okay. And so again, look at the slop headed up, San Francisco, Nevada. This was just over the weekend. So now there could be onesie-twosies in there that are straight up legit. I mean, those folks do have other business that they conduct. But a couple things about this that stand out, and that is the fact that we are seeing a record level. Two, we know it's not state level because they are going across state lines. So it'd be federal level. And, it's just through the process of elimination. We know it's not USGS because they've already disclosed the ones that they are doing, and they're not talking about any of these other ones. So, okay, we're in the loop on that one. Now, I showed you 60 days, right? This one's going to blow your mind because I actually had to go to Skyglass and have him run. Now, this is 75 days, and we're going to pause it for a second because I need to talk before we start. Very important. Okay, I had to go to the owner of Skyglass to get the data because it was so massive that only he could do it at this time. Okay, and when I say massive, I tracked 3,900 flights roughly, just right at that, and I had to stop because when I got into the 4,000 range, I was having memory issues. Because keep in mind, when this is how amazing Skyglass is. When you see those trace lines on the screen, that is a flight path of an aircraft, and it's tracking it in 5-second increments. Let that sink in. When you start talking about 375 airplanes being tracked, every flight that they do in 5-second increments. And so I went to Skyglass and I said, hey, can you run this from your standpoint to see if if you're getting something, if you're having the same crash issue? Because for me, it was a memory issue thing, right? It starts to eat up a lot of memory. And so the number that he came back to me this morning with, 75 days, 375 aircraft, was almost 7,000 flights. It was like 6,892 flights or something. Let that sink in. 75 days, almost 7,000 survey flights. I'm telling you, they are up to something. And this isn't just United States, okay? We're going to let this continue on to play. As you can see, it is lit up. It's coast to coast. They're looking at everything. This is just Florida's completely covered up. Look at it up the East Coast. Look at Minnesota. It's absolutely crazy. And I was actually because it was so much data loaded, it was so hard to navigate. So I'm popping around on you again. Last 75 days, and I'm only showing half of what was really done out there. Check that out. Okay, this is over Sweden. Why is Sweden looking at stuff? A little bit of stuff into Denmark, but that just blows you away. Look at the U.S. You can see there's very little not covered here. I mean, they are absolutely. And what in the heck is in Minnesota that would require the amount of surveys that they have over there? I don't get it. Like, it just blows me away, the amount of surveys that are over Minnesota. And it doesn't just stop here in the U.S. You can see, look at this, Dallas-Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston. It's all of Florida, like I said, all of Florida. And then, sorry, and I know I keep going in and out, just trying to show you the aerial side. It was, like I said, it was very hard to navigate because of the amount of memory and everything that it was taking, okay? So West Coast completely covered. Now we go down to Australia, and this was one, it's a little easier to navigate because it was not so much data there over the area. But look at this, that's New Zealand. So there's flights in New Zealand, okay? Look at down the southern end, off to the west coast of Australia, all the way up the coast. Now, again, I have to rely on the folks down under to really tell me if this is just this is what they do this time of season. Because remember, their season is different than ours, and they typically do this type of survey stuff in October here in the United States because of the foliage, the leaves. Let's just put it that way. It's easier to see things. All right. And so anyway, that's where we are. 75 days, all the way back to March 7th to now. 75 days, 6,982 flights. All right. So I know I put 3,000 whatever on my thing. That's because that was the data that I had in front of me. But again, Skyglass pulled the data, and it is absolutely staggering. 7,000 flights in 75 days. And you tell me there's not something up. All right. We thought it was suspicious when we thought it was 1,200 in the last 30 days. But now you just double that, and it is astronomical number. And they're not slowing down. That's the thing that gets me, is these flights continue on. The survey flights are just, I go every single day, and it's anywhere, from 60 upwards of 120 in any given day. So I don't know what's going on. If they're mapping a battlefield, they are getting down to some pretty nitty-gritty detail, I would imagine. If they're looking for something, maybe. The fact that Australia has them going on, that Sweden, of all places, has them going on, I have a suspicion that in other countries they are also going on. We just have not captured the data because we don't know what airplanes to look for yet. So if I were to add and go look for surveys in, say, India or other locations in Europe, I would imagine we will find that everything is being mapped. So, all right, there's your data point for you. You probably just switch from coffee to the heavy drink early in the morning after that one. So, okay, let's bug out of the Skyglass piece for a minute. Let's jump over here to this section, and this is another data point for you. I just want to push this in front. We talked about it in, I think, our last SITREP, and the interesting thing is just the fact that 30 tons of ammonium nitrate just disappears, okay? Now, when I'm talking with my subject matter experts on this stuff, there was something that caught their eyes, and I completely glossed over it because I figured that we were probably, it probably had to do with the farmers and not getting stuff to them, okay? But I think there's something more to this. And the reason I say that is because this statement right here by the company that was moving it says that they transported it in pellet form in a covered hopper car, similar to those used to ship coal. You've probably seen the coal cars, the hopper cars go down. You can actually see the coal in the top. So the fact this was a covered hopper car. But here's the thing. And according to the experts that I know, they don't transport hazmat in hopper cars. So this story right out of the gate, it tells me there's something going on here. The fact that they mentioned the 1995 federal building in Oklahoma City that I want to say was like 4,500 pounds of ammonium nitrate that caused that whole building to come down, almost the whole building, pretty much 80% of it. So now you're talking 60,000 pounds that just happened to disappear. They say that these rail cars actually are very sophisticated in the fact that they can tell if they've got hot bearings. They can tell if they've got a lot of different issues in terms of things going on with those rail cars. So the fact that stuff would just come out the bottom or wherever it may go, they would have picked up on that and stopped it immediately, and they would have known about it. So the story is stinks to high heaven. Let's just put it that way. Okay. All right. Let's get over here to Flashbang. It looks like he is meeting with McCarthy today. Time TBD. Again, down here at the end of the day, time TBD. And off the record. Additional details will follow this morning if there are updates to the schedule. I don't know what's going on. But let's get over here to this because this is going on and this is quite promising. 40%, it's actually 42. So 4 in 10 say Congress should begin impeachment proceeding on Biden. Pretty much a vote of no confidence. But there's all kinds of stuff going on with him right now. And of course, we are talking about some of the world leaders that are getting together. And I can only imagine just how embarrassing he probably was at the G7. You notice that they tend to crowd him out now because he is inconsequential. So let's get over here to this. White House officials say Biden's migration is an economic strategy. Now, this comes from a White House official. This isn't somebody else talking it. But this, I think, is the big key takeaway here. It says, senior official in the White House says President flashbang immigration policy is intended to fill new jobs in government spending programs. Government spending programs. Now, this is where I find this to be a little bit high-tech firms and a growing economy. The economy is not growing. In fact, it seems to be shrinking. All the indicators would say that is the case. But when they talk about high-tech firms, keep in mind, this is the immigration policy. Now, if they were bringing people over that were doctors and people that had high levels of education, I would say, okay, that makes sense. We've seen them do that in the past to grow programs, i.e. Operation Paperclip. We know where that went. But this is really, as our economy grows, the big takeaway right here. As our economy grows, we need workers that we just don't have enough of. So it is our interest to bring people in and to stay competitive globally. Yeah, but like I said, they're not bringing in people that are highly educated. They're bringing in workers. And that should be your big takeaway here, okay? If they're going to be building things and they need, new stuff done, they bring in the people that are south of the border because they are, A, the hardest workers, B, and that's proven. I can tell you from living in Texas, you look at every landscape company, every brick and mortar company, construction in general, and it is 99.9% of those guys are from across the border, and they get it done, and they work from sun up to sundown. Roofing companies, whatever it may be, but the general laborers, those are the guys that are coming across the border. Now, the interesting piece to that is a lot of them work for cash. And when we go digital, that's going to kill this whole policy because you're not going to be able to pay them in cash, and it'll be very hard to hire them officially because they are not legal. So, all right. Speaking of the immigration policy, let's take a look at what's going on with Swift Air. Point out, just notice you got some stuff. Alexandria 72-hour holding facility headed down to Bogota, Colombia. Those are people getting basically... they get arrested and taken into custody, and then they get sent back to the country. But we have some other ones here that I find interesting. Baltimore, Washington, down to over to Wyoming. I don't get that one unless you had maybe some folks coming in from Sudan or Afghanistan or something else. This one, Oklahoma City to Metro Oakland. That's probably a prison run, to be honest with you. And then... Minneapolis, St. Paul over to Los Angeles. So a lot of interior runs today, which I find a little more concerning. Normally we would see a lot of southern flights headed from border towns down there near Harlingen, et cetera, and we're not seeing that. So that's a pretty good indicator they're moving other immigration folks around the system. Keep in mind, they typically don't mingle two different religions together. So if you had, say, a bunch of Muslims coming from Afghanistan, you're not going to put them with a bunch of Catholics from south of the border. Just not going to do it because they will certainly get into it. All right. Okay. Let's go over here to this piece of it. Now, U.S. aid to Ukraine is on track to run out in September. Thank you, Jesus. But somehow, some way, they will find a nugget to give to them, like mismanaging whatever it may be in their lists and funding over in the Pentagon. And then, oh, hey, we just found $3 billion more. I'm not so sure about this number. It's funny. They kind of put a spin on this in many, many different ways in terms of, it says here that since this whole thing kicked off in February, that lawmakers have approved the disbursement of $48.9 billion in military aid to Ukraine. Yeah, that may just be one little segment. What they don't bring up, because it doesn't look very good, is the security funds or the retirement funds that went into the place, all in stacks of dollar bills flown in on airplanes that was untraceable. That's the part they don't really talk about. But it is definitely well over 100 billion. This is just one little fragment. Story doesn't look good when you start talking about the real number, right? So what you do is you just bring them all into that little swim lane that you want them to focus on and nothing else. Okay. GOP pushes back against the WHO plans for their global governance on emergencies. Yeah, well, we kind of expected that. Remember, Flashbang was actually going to hand over the keys to the castle, and it looks like the GOP, for right now, are pushing back on that, and they don't think it's a good idea. Will it go through? Probably, but there's all kinds of little nuggets in here just about how bad the WHO was when all this went down, and they don't need to be basically in charge of anything. So we'll see if it sticks. I have a feeling it'll be the keys will be handed over to the castle. All right. Okay. Now let's talk about this for 1 second. Again, we mentioned it in the last SITREP, just like we mentioned the rail car thing, but I'm circling the wagons back on it because it's important to understand how this all goes into play. This Bilderberg group, there's actually 2 others besides them, but this one is basically very, very secretive. Who is in it is usually held very close to the vest. But when these guys get together, we need to all pay very close attention, because even though we may think something like the World Economic Forum is actually calling the shots, the reality is they're getting their direction from these guys and probably 2 other groups. All right. It is a very pyramid-shaped tier system, and we're at the bottom, if you haven't figured that out, but these guys are at the top. And so when you hear them talking about things like AI, the banking system, right? Why they're talking about China, and Russia, probably because of the current threats, the fact that these guys are making big, bold moves. But keep in mind, too, this is alphabetical list. But again, we're going to circle the wagons here on U.S. leadership, because the last time they met to talk about U.S. leadership was in 2018. All right. So the fact that you hear rumblings rather quickly here about a Biden impeachment is because his handlers are already cutting the cords loose on him, and they already got eyes on his replacement. So keep your eye on all of this. But this is a very important thing. Don't lose sight of these folks, because they are evil, I guess would be the word for it. But they are the ones that drive every bit of this. And if anything gets allowed on this planet, it's because these folks are basically holding the purse strings to do it. All right, i.e. our media. Okay. Let's take a look at the dollar today, see what we've got going on here. It looks like it's been on a little bit of an uptick over time. It's at 103. It was down to almost 101 and some change. And it looks like it's back headed downward now for today. But again, we see little news things happen, and then it just either drops or we get a big induction of money, or somebody somewhere is stimulating it and it goes up. So keep your eye on this. Eventually, it'll get over to digital and this thing will be worthless, or everybody around the world will start to trade something other than by the dollar. All right. Notice again, it's kind of a little bit of a swimming pool here, a little dip. And let's see, I don't think we'll see these levels here again. It'll probably stay around this range, 103, 102, at least for the time being. So All right, we're going to jump over here to our NOTAMs just to see what's going on. Now, notice we do have what looks to be an activity up here that's going to be north of Russia, up here in the Arctic Ocean. It's pretty cold water. But notice here, again, Canada is having unprecedented fires right now. And these are all pretty much fireboxes. Last count was like 93 fires, active fires going on out here. And they're saying, too, a lot of the smoke is coming down here into the United States. That's the haze that you see, right? But let's take a look at it over here on this map. You can see the wind direction, but these are the fires. And it looks like right now, the way the jet stream is running, it's going to be pushing this stuff up. So this will probably smoke will start heading up here, or at least over here until the next series of wind takes it over here. So they'll probably get some stuff in Europe here eventually, but this is all the fires up here in Canada. Pretty crazy. Got a little earthquake down here, but again, Dutch sense is your guy. 5.5 in California. Interesting. Patriola, I think is what that said, but some fires down in Florida. And again, we're entering an El Nino phase, so this stuff you see, water temps are getting pretty hot, and that moisture line is going to get, this stuff will slowly get sucked in. It looks like we're going to have a pretty wet couple months here in Texas. All right, covered that. We looking around. These are normal boxes here. It does look to be more active. We've got some new danger boxes off of the East Coast, off the West Coast, up here in the northern side, and then we get over here. I don't see any new TFRs relative to flashbang as of yet. It looks like it's just over the Senior Living Center here. A lot of stuff, look like some boxes down in Central America. Same stuff here off of the coast of Morocco. This, I want to say, was unmanned aircraft activity. Looks like it runs till the end of this month. And looks like we've got some exercises here in northern UK, again, up here in Finland. This is probably tied to the stuff. Let me just click on it and see if it goes. Now, this is only to the 24th of May, which is interesting because they got a very large exercise that's coming that will, it's only running until the 24th of May, and then this will go away, and then there'll be another box that comes on for this big exercise. That's why we're seeing all of the fighters going across the drink, right? Okay, seeing anything else? Again, this is all the activity we've been watching down here in Italy. Big exercise going on there as well. So, okay, let's jump over here. Again, this is Canada's unprecedented wildfires fill North American skies with smoke. That's what we were just looking at. A little bit out of sequence here, so I apologize. But let's see here. More than 93 fires and close to 3,000 square miles of land have been burned to date. All right, so that would be our Canada segment. All right, let's get over here to Bitdefender, see what's going on from an attack standpoint. And we'll button this little piece up. Looks like, again, every time we come in, just notice the United States is always at the top. And like I mentioned before, we just aren't liked very much in the world. So this is the activity happening here. Look at this, just getting peppered nonstop. Okay, now, you, like me, probably didn't even realize that we didn't even have any B-2s for the last 5 months. That's a shocker, but evidently the Air Force has finally returned them to flight after 5 months, and officials won't say why one of their stealthy bombers was forced to land in December. But as soon as that happened, they grounded the fleet, and they've been fixing what was wrong. These come very handy when it comes to a war, and so that could be maybe why some of the windows that we've been looking at in terms of not happening until spring offensive. Now these things are back in the air. This is a pretty big one to be out of your fleet if you're in war, right? Probably don't want to broadcast that very often. Okay, you'd be relying on B-52s. Okay, here we go. Now we heard Flashbang originally say we're not giving them F-16s. I guess somebody has leaned on them since to say, hey, we're going to have to give them F-16s. So it looks like this is starting to take shape. And it looked like in the G7 meeting that he basically said he now supports training them on F-16s. And key word there, other Western jets. Oh, by the way, that's going to be your F-16. It's a pretty incredible aircraft compared to what it's flying against, which would be the Soviet aircraft. But it can definitely hold its own. No two ways about it. It's not going to be the same as, say, an F-35 or an F-22, but we start giving them F-35s and F-22s, and I'm going to be very shocked because the reason that we did not want to give them F-16s is because we didn't want our technology getting into the wrong hands over there, because we know and are very confident that these are probably going to get shot down. All right, so what does that tell you? So anyway, here's this knucklehead Zelensky. Yeah, I'm telling you, this guy seems to get his way over and over and over. I don't know what dirt he has on them, but it is very evident that the United States has interest in the Ukraine that are far beyond what the general populace knows about, i.e. the CIA. Okay. All right, here we go. Denmark to help train Ukrainian F-16 pilots. That's from their foreign minister. So it looks like Denmark is going to be training them. We already know that they've been over here training for a multitude of different things. The UK has been training them for a multitude of different things. The key takeaway here is just the fact that we are having to actually train these folks on everything that we give them, and it's not plug and play, and that means you're probably going to have a tremendous amount of losses when things start to go hot, because they don't really have the range and depth that you need to fight against Russia with equipment that they're not familiar with. So, okay, over here. Now, Russia basically over this whole F-16 thing is saying, hey, F-16 transfer to Ukraine would raise a very big question with NATO, and the fact that the warning, says the latest Russia warning comes after U.S. President Biden agreed to provide training to the Ukraine pilots on fighting with the jets. This is a game changer, much like the tanks. When you start to enter things into that arena, you think about Ukraine being about the size of Texas, and you realize that there are a multitude of different weapons being inducted into that arena, most of which right now are sitting on the border. They haven't been pushed into Ukraine ready to go. So jets are being hidden. They flew a couple when they first got them, and they quickly lost a few, and they quit flying them, I believe. I haven't seen too much talk about the success of the aircraft because they're getting shot down. In fact, you heard them complain that they had flown what they thought was a single Russian fighter, and they flew to engage it and found out there were 5 more beside it, and that they were basically flying high and tight, so to speak. And so it was only giving off one signature, and you've seen that in the original Top Gun. That's just, that's the Russian MO. That's our MO, actually. You fly so tight that they think it's one until they get right up on you and realize that there are a multitude of you. Okay, so Moscow is actually claiming that it has captured Bakhmut, the epicenter of Ukraine fighting. And that was just announced over the weekend. If that is the case, then that changes quite a bit. This has been a pretty ugly area. Been a lot of people killed, right? Loss of life has been very high in this general area. So for them to say that they've actually captured it now, we may see the urgency to start this new phase with the spring offensive coming, forward here pretty quickly. All right. So we've got 2 camber flights, one MD-11, one 767. Those probably would be a good indicator. Those are troops that are on board these, because 747s right now aren't really carrying too many troops. They're carrying most of the artillery and the tanks and things that we're trying to get into the theater. So you can see this one's coming out of, climbing out 7,900 feet, 312 miles an hour, out of down there in the toe near Malta in Italy. And then this one seems to be coming out of Perot Field in Fort Worth, still on the climb out. Biggs Army Airfield. Okay, pay attention to this one because I'm starting to see something that is a little concerning. These aren't troops being moved, all right? When you start seeing all of these coming in, Southwest Airlines, Sun Country, the little boys, 737-800s, that is a good indicator that they are moving folks from El Paso inbound into the interior of our country, and I'm talking about immigrants, all right? Notice these two, taking 2 flights up to Minneapolis, St. Paul. I don't know why I throw an extra N in there, but it's just for good measure. And then this one here up to Harrisburg in Pennsylvania. So again, that's Southwest Airlines. That this is basically us dispersing immigrants into our country, all right? Putting them, either rehoming them or putting them in some other camp location up there. Again, that's a pretty good indicator that we're being lied to about who's being allowed in our country. We're processing them and putting them into our country now, okay? We get over here to Dover, and just notice I have one coming inbound, 747-400 out of Chicago. That's going to be an Atlas Air based on the call sign, GTI. That's the only thing I show on the board. So let's get over here to this side. We're going to have, this is going to be ETAR, which is Ramstein, Germany. And we've got one camber flight coming in from Nellis, Las Vegas. That's an MD-11, probably a troop arrival. And some reach. Let's see what we got over here on this side of it. Yeah, it looks like this 747 is headed down to Aviano, all right, Air Base. That's a 747, so that's probably carrying some heavy stuff. Okay, nothing else there. Let's get over here to RZE. Now, we have seen kind of a lull. Again, on average, we were seeing about 6 to 8 camber flights a day, most of them 747s. So let's see what we have here. Remember, you're looking at the arrival and departure board for the base that is forward operating base near Ukraine border. And so we just kind of go through, keep in mind that there is a mix of product on this board, and that is commercial as well as military. It's just a joint location where they land stuff. Okay, Royal Norwegian Air Force. Haven't seen that one yet, so we'll have to watch that. I may have to add the NOW call sign to our tracker. That's pretty interesting. And then this here, NATO, the MMF, that's going to be NATO. We head down. So if you're looking to track their flights, you'd go in by operator and enter the MMF or the NOW. Camber, CMB, right? So this is 747 coming in from Travis. And again, the smaller flights, I do believe, are probably going to be, troop movement. And the bigger flights like these, 747, that's the second one coming in from Travis. So we've got 2 747-400s coming in from Travis Air Force Base. More than likely, it's bringing equipment in, which has probably been staged by a C-17, and then they put it on these, and they bring them across the drink. Okay. This Atlas Air, again, leaving destination unknown. We go down a little further. That one's headed down to Crete. A little further down, let's see what we've got on here. Another Atlas Air. Notice they're hiding the locations where these things are headed. That's a little suspect. All right, we get down a little further. But again, I'm not seeing nowhere near what we were originally seeing. This is definitely plateaued, and it's very, small amounts coming in now, which, like I said, being a forward operating base would indicate that we may be going hot here a little in the near future. Okay. All right. This is Western Global, and you can see looks like they've got 2 planes, both departing out of Alaska. This one looks to be headed down south to Los Angeles, and this one is headed over to Japan. I don't see anything else on the board. Only 2 of those, both 747s, so more than likely that's equipment, or it's coming to pick up equipment. Okay, this is Omni, and just notice coming out of Bedford, headed to Alexandria. which is a 72-hour holding facility for migrants. And but that's a 777-200. So if they're coming down here from up here, that is a little suspect. All right. And then looks like we've got one that's headed out of, oh, that's the top one there. It looks Gulfport, Mississippi, headed to Puerto Rico. Now, keep in mind, too, that Omni serves many masters. So they will have a mix of migrant stuff, but they will also have a mix of military stuff. So it just depends on who's writing the check that day. And then over here, National Cargo, our board. Let me get over. It looks like everything is coming in and out of Spain and out of Madrid. This one up here coming out of Anchorage, headed to Atlanta. 747. Notice that they are all three 747-400s. And then this one here looks to be coming from Madrid, rolling into this other location, Trinidad. And then this one here looks to be coming out of Madrid to a destination unknown. All right. Okay. Well, listen, that does it. Again, we're going to continue to monitor the survey flights. I really wish I could understand why and what is going on here, but I just have a very bad feeling in my gut that this is probably tied to what they're expecting, maybe civil unrest or, but why Sweden? Again, we just probably aren't seeing all of it, but there seems to be a very large effort that is ongoing. They haven't stopped, and it just continues to grow that I've never seen before. So just keep looking up because, man, there's a lot of things going on over our heads. So, all right, listen, that's going to be it. Keep that powder dry and stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Check out the latest gear and products at monkeyworksus.com.